I believe the future of the republic is at stake. And so that's why I decided to get out and run for president. And I decided to go out and tell people exactly what I just told you. Here's why. And the amazing thing is, in spite of being outspent, I don't know how many multiples to one, in spite of getting absolutely no press coverage and being out there on the edge of these debates, and, they throw me a question every now and then about, abortion or gay rights or something like that, to reinforce the stereotype that, he's just sort of a candidate, likes to talk about these things. In spite of that, when we went around the country and we talked about these core principles and core values, talked about this election has to be about who we are. Problems in this country, yes, they're economic, but they're much more foundational than that. They go to the core of who we are. They go to the core of the family structure in America. And so we went out and talked about those things. And amazingly, people came. And we ended up winning Iowa and 11 other states. And I would just share with you that those of you who are out there on college campuses, and you think it's hopeless on so many campuses, when I went out and talked about the basic principles of who we are, go back to the Declaration. Ask them whether they agree with that. People say we're so divided. No, we're not as divided as you think. We've just forgotten a lot. So many have just not been re-anchored. You bring them back and re-anchor them to something we can start at as a starting point for what America is about, then walk them forward. What does that mean? What does this whole idea of God-given rights and fundamental rights really mean? Where do those rights come from? And when the government comes in and says, we're going to give you a right, you see what happens. They can tell you how to exercise those rights. It's exactly what they're doing in the HHS regs and so many other things that they are now imposing their will on people against their fundamental freedoms. I'm encouraged. I am greatly encouraged by what I saw across America. There is a wellspring of people who see what this time in America is about. And they're anxious and willing, and they are stepping forward. I have no doubt, whether it's this election or whether it's the next one or the ones in the future, that the American DNA, and I think our DNA is different. The vast majority of people who came to this country came here because they wanted those things that I talked about. Your ancestors, by and large, came here because they wanted those things. It's in your DNA. They didn't stay behind. I would encourage you to be happy warriors, to go out and talk about the greatness of our country, to remind people who we are and what we're about and how we transform this world. And that if we are willing to go back to the pre-revolutionary days of being servants, subjects of the king, servants to the government, which is exactly what we were prior to 1776. And we're exactly where we're headed if we don't do something now. There is no one who's going to be affected by this more than the people in this room, the young people of America. You're seeing the effects with this economy just struggling along. Why? Because of this oppressive government and increasingly oppressive regulatory scheme and taxes and antipathy toward anybody who is successful, minimizing their accomplishments and celebrating the collective. This isn't America. I really do believe people are seeing it. I am optimistic about this election. But we have to be able to go out and communicate big things, big ideas, and fundamental principles. If you do, I am convinced that you can actually start changing hearts on college campuses. You can start changing hearts all over America. Study, be steeped, understand who we are, what we're about, and be not afraid to go out and preach it at the mountaintops.